Hi, George Durkee, back with video 4 of our setting up a fire incident map using ArcGIS Pro. And in this video, we'll actually start putting in the fire points and fire lines and the perimeter of the fire. And one change in point I want to make right away is let's add one more field to the domain field to the fire points. So if you still have your tabs open for domains, otherwise go to the geodatabase and go to domains, and that'll bring up the tab. And then on the codes, add fire origin and description fire origin and put that in. And then make sure, and I didn't say this when we were setting up domains, so make sure that you save. If you get into the domain and check them both, that you've saved them both. And if you don't do that, they won't show up when we actually need them to enter in the fire point types. And check the same thing in fire line type, where we associated the particular label field with fire line type. And if save is active, go ahead and save that, and check the same thing for points. Make sure that you've saved it. So let's go back to the map and start putting in a little bit more data, and then starting to draw in the fire symbols. So one of the things in incident mapping, and in fact in any field work you do, is potentially having your own set of digital maps, because if you don't have access to the internet, you'll need your own USGS topo maps or whatever you want to use. And so in the data folders that I had you guys download, the GIS fire data folders, and then put into your accessible folders here. If you go down to topo maps, go to base data and then topo maps, and you'll see a map here, which is just a code. But all of the California and US, in fact, USGS maps are organized by these code series. And there are indexes of what maps are what area. In this case, this is what's called a mosaic. So it's a set of USGS 24K maps, 1 to 24,000, which is kind of the standard size paper map for those of you used to using them hiking or biking or whatever you might do. And these are stitched together into a mosaic to cover a larger area. So in this case, there's 4 of them that pretty much cover all of Tuolumne and Calaveras counties. And I'll also add they're getting harder to find. And so you might have to check around, check with the Forest Service, and see if they have a set you can use and put on a thumb drive for your area of interest. In any event, go ahead and right-click on the SID, which is a raster data type, and click. Oops, I have to find it here. Click Add to Current Map. And notice it zooms, as you add it, it zooms to where the map is. And we're going to do the same thing to structures. Click on the down arrow for vector, because structures is a point data file, and right click and add to current map. Also, another note on digital maps. USGS is making it pretty easy to find individual quads at 1 to 24K or higher, but they are now coming as what's called GeoPDFs. So they're PDFs with digital location information embedded in that particular map. And they're great maps, but they only cover one quad. So if you need a map that covers several quads, the disadvantage is that they have what's called a collar around them. So that's just like a regular USGS paper map, and so it's got all the information you know, at the bottom where it shows the general location, the coordinate type, when it was done, things like that. And then around the map it has the coordinate ticks where you can figure out the coordinate just from the paper map. So as I say, that's great for if that's the only map you need, and when you bring it into your ARC project, it'll correctly geolocate, but you still have that collar around it. I do have a video on how to remove that collar and add a bunch of maps together so that they stitch together correctly. But it's kind of a pain, and I keep looking for an easier way of getting USGS digital maps, and it's just not as easy as it used to be. In any event, let's now zoom in on our fire, and so for this we're going to use go to XY, so we're going to use specific coordinates to zoom in on the fire origin, and I'm going to use a theoretical fire origin location, and we'll type in the exact coordinates here. And notice that you can choose the coordinate type, whether decimal degrees, degrees, minutes, seconds, decimal minutes, and UTM, or US National Grid. We're going to use decimal degrees here. And so the longitude, and if you've read the coordinate system chapter, you know we can use either a minus sign or a W for west, or an E for east if we're east of the Greenwich meridian. So it's going to be minus 120 degrees dot 294,519. And latitude of 37.805,640. And I just hit enter and a little green dot flashes. Now you've got a couple of choices of how to see where that is. The first one you might want to use is flash location, and that tells you if you're where you think you are, or the coordinates where you think they are. It often happens where you flash and nothing shows up on the map. And if that's the case, you have either entered the coordinates wrong, and the common problem is to forget to put in either a W or a minus sign for the longitude. And if you do that, you'll end up off in China or somewhere like that. And so if you zoom to that location, it'll take you to some strange place. So just be aware of that. And the other thing you can do is pan to location, and that centers it. It'll both flash and it'll center on the map the location. And finally, you can actually add a point, and this is a graphic point. It's not part of your data set at all. It's just a separate graphic point. So you add a graphic point, and then if you want, you can actually add the coordinates. You can mark the location with a call out. It'll add the coordinates either as a call out, as a box, or just as XY. So I use the call out because it gives a background so you can see it better. And notice it gives it a light yellow background, and the coordinates are there. So now we can zoom in on that point. So you can either use the mouse wheel forward or backward to zoom in, or because we have the Explore icon activated, and if you don't have that activated, there's other symbols, and I'll give you guys a link to keyboard commands so that if you're using another tool, you can also then use override that and use the Explore tool. So in this case, I'm just going to hold down the Shift key, and then the Zoom tool comes up, and I'm going to draw it around there and zoom in. And I might, no, that's a good zoom area to have. So we'll just keep that there. Now notice this is a graphic point, and you have this kind of long arrow. So let's shorten that a little bit. So I'm going over here to Graphics and the Select tool, and I highlight the point, and let's kind of drag it out of our main area here. Maybe even close it in a little bit. And just set it somewhere out of the way. And eventually we'll delete that. And to delete it, you do the same thing. You use the select tool, highlight it, and then just hit the delete key and do the same for the point here as well. And as always, let's save. Okay, now we're going to, at long last, start edit mode. We don't need our catalog anymore, so click on the middle pin there to get that out of the way. And also in the opening clip here, I just paused and corrected my mistake. I didn't have points, lines, and area that we'd put in at the end of the last video, and so I just put them in moments ago. So now on to editing. To go into editing, we just go on to the edit tool here, the edit on the ribbon bar, and notice that when we did the options, I specifically activated the icon in edit mode where I can turn editing on and off. And so I'm going to turn it on now. And then you choose which tool you want to use. First off, we're going to use create, but notice you also have modify where you can take existing points, lines, and you can modify them if you need to. So let's just use the create tool, and the create features tab comes up. Lock that into place, and then it shows you all of the feature classes and files that are available for editing. And the what determines what's available for editing is if it's a file that can be edited, and also if it's activated in your contents pane. So notice here on the right that MOC points is activated, but if I turn it off, it disappears from our available features to be able to create. So sometimes you'll notice that a feature isn't there to be edited, and that's usually the problem. Now the first point we're going to want to add here is going to be the point of origin of the fire. So we know we're going to be working with points, so go ahead and right click and bring up the attribute table, and then resize it to give you more map to have available. And this is because we're going to want to specify the field type as we add it. So then highlight points, and the actual create feature tools come up. And we're just going to choose the basic point tool. And as you bring it out here, you can zoom in, and we could actually establish it exactly at that graphic point. But I also want to show you how you can locate it by absolute XY. So we could have done this first instead of putting in that graphic point. So click on absolute XY and change it to decimal degrees if it doesn't come up that, and then it changes both of them at once. And then we're going to type in the same coordinates as we did for setting this up. So minus 120.294.519 and 37.805.640, and then just enter, and it establishes a point there. We can zoom in and you can see it just established a tiny little point that's highlighted in the same blue here. And then we want to go to name, and notice we now have the drop down of our domains. And so we're going to call this fire origin. And as I said earlier, this allows you to just choose a predetermined name. So if you were to enter fire origin and you'd misspelled any of it, that'll cause problems later for our symbology. So we choose fire origin and then just hit enter. Now let's get rid of the graphic there because it's kind of in our way. So I'm still in edit mode, and this is kind of the nice feature here. So I'm getting out of editing, and it asks if I want to save my edits, which yes, I do. And now go over to graphics, and just for grins, if you've still got your graphic highlighted there with the little resize toggles around it, go ahead and clear that, and then use the select button to select it and delete. And now go in on the little marker there, and let's delete that too. And that's highlighted, and go ahead and click the delete up here, or use delete on your keyboard. Okay, so back to the map, and Explore tool, and hold down the Shift key, and let's zoom in a little farther there to see the marker. Later on we'll change the symbology, but right now it's kind of small. Let's just change it to something large here, and that's good enough for the moment. Next, since we're using fire symbology, you'll notice that when we click on symbols there and bring it up, it's not coming up, there we go, lock it into place. And so we just have the standard Arc Pro style set here, which doesn't include fire or other emergency styles. But fortunately, we can bring in symbol sets from other places. Fire styles you can find in several different places. I've put them in, remember, the folder structure, and it's under Documents. So what you do to add a style is you go to Insert, and then you go over to Styles, there we are, and Add Style. And in my case, I've already got it so it shows up as Fire Data folder, and again, Fire Data folder, Documents, and Styles, Logos, and Tools. And so we've got 4 here. The 2 of them are from ArcGIS 10, so it allows you to import those, and that's that you go to import up here. But for this, we've already converted it to to the style YLX file type, which is the default for Pro. Anyway, highlight wildfire, and then OK. And notice now in your point symbol choices, you have all of these choices here. So let's go back to the map, and we've highlighted this one, and so we're going to look for origin. Let's see if it's here, fire origin. And there it is, fire origin. We're going to click on that. We're going to change the symbol to that. That's the standardized symbol for fire origin. Okay, we're done for the moment with points. Now let's zoom out a little bit, and we're going to draw in the fire perimeter, and then we'll start doing some of the lines. Now remember, in our folder structure under incident data, folders, then incident data, then products, I've got a couple of examples of the map that we want to draw. And as I said, it doesn't have to be like this exactly. I'm going to want you to draw in the area of the fire, the perimeter, and then we're going to draw in with the line tool specific parts of it, showing just active fire, controlled line where the fire theoretically isn't in danger of going beyond that, and then a couple of dozer lines. And so this is a rough idea of what we're going to want to draw in, but it's mostly practice with the line and point tools and things like that. So don't get too carried away with that it has to exactly match this. And also, in all honesty, we don't really like the map that I brought in. So let's get rid of that, and let's just look at the underlying topography here. The reason for that is this is a little cleaner. Notice it still has our structures, and that is relevant because those are high priority areas to protect, even though we won't be drawing in evacuation zones. And while we're here, it's probably worth looking at whatever other base maps we can use. So go ahead and hit the drop down for base maps, and let's change that. Let's try the USGS national map here. The USA topo map is what I was just using, in which we unchecked. And I thought that was a little too busy, but let's try USGS national map. And that's a little better. That's cleaner. It shows the elevation lines. So let's stick with that for the moment. Okay, let's start drawing in some lines here. Also, if you still have your XY, go to XY tool open, go ahead and close that. And let's, you're in the Explore tool, and so let's use the hand tool and try and center it a little better to where we're going to draw this. We can get rid of our symbology, give us a little more real estate to work with. And let's go back into edit mode. Edit, there we go. And let's bring up the create symbol tool for fire area first. Now, if you're just using Arc for the first time, you want to get used to a couple of these different polygon tools here, and remember that the area is a polygon. So we have create a polygon feature, and you have several ways to draw it here. You can draw a circle or a square, a rectangle, oval, but the ones we're going to concentrate on for the moment are just the rectangle tool and the freehand tool, and we'll use them both, and I want you to practice with both. They're both good. The freehand tool is a little more difficult in the sense that you pretty much have to know where you're going. The polygon tool, you can correct your drawing just with Control Z if you make mistakes. So let's use that first. And I'm just going to go from point of origin here, and you click left to start, and you just start clicking every time you want to change it. So I'm bringing it up this gully here, and then moving along the top of the ridge, and I'm staying approximately the original fire here, but coming along this ridge here, we'll come down the ridge, and it burned right along the road, and didn't come quite over here. Let's go over here a little bit and bring it up. It hadn't, anyway, just a general area, and then double click to end it. And now let's just practice a little bit with a freehand tool, and we'll draw in a little spot fire over here. That'll be fun. And you click left to start it, and then just start drawing, just freehand. You don't have the left click down at all, and then just single click to end it. And so there you've created a little spot fire. We'll just keep that in. That's not uncommon to get spot fires. Now let's change the symbology on that. So let's go ahead and click on the symbol itself, and that brings up our fire symbols. And I'm going to choose, you have a wildfire daily perimeter. And so that's actually the symbol we use in our online maps. And you can also crosshatch it. One of the things you do want to pay attention to, though, is that you've got the transparency. You've made it transparent enough so you can see the underlying terrain. And the way to do that is you go to Appearance, and one of your choices here is Transparency, and it gives you a little slider bar here. And you have to make sure that the feature class that you want to work on is highlighted. So I have Fire Area highlighted, obviously, and then you can increase or decrease. So I'm going to actually make it a little bit lighter there. So I've put it at about 30% there. So that works pretty well. Let me go back to the map and save. And you want to save your edits. I forgot to do that. So let's notice that the last little spot fire here is still active and highlighted. So we could actually just delete that because it's active and highlighted from edit mode. And edit is still active, so that was actually my fault. That's what I mean by making sure you get out of edit mode when you go back and forth and do other things. So when I went to transparency, I probably should have gotten out of edit, but it doesn't make a huge amount of difference. So right now I can just hit delete, and the spot fire we drew will disappear. But let's just keep it, and let's now clear the selection. And so then we'd want to save again. No, save's not active, so it is saved. Now I just want to show you once more when you're using the polygon tool here. So I activated Fire Area. I'm still in edit mode, and now I left click, and I'm just drawing this randomly here. Now, if you make a mistake, you can hit Control Z to go back one, or go back two, or just go back and get rid of it entirely. So that way you can correct yourself if when you change directions it's not working. In any event, let's go out of edit mode. Now let's draw in some fireline types. And I hadn't talked about it before, but snapping allows us to just snap along other features. So go to Edit, Snapping is on. We go to Fireline Type, and we're going to create a feature. We're going to create new lines and lock Create Features into place, and go ahead to Line, and this will be the click-by-click way of doing it. Notice as I hover over the existing line, I'm able to just snap right along the line and keep it exactly there. If I turn off snapping, that's not possible, and then your drawing tool is not automatically drawn to that point or line. And within snapping, you can also set tolerances. So if you're within X distance, your line automatically snaps there. So if you set the distance for a little ways away, no matter how far away, it'll automatically snap to that line. So turn back on snapping. We have a create feature for a fireline type, and let's go ahead and left click to start it. Oh, and I've chosen fireline type, the line tool, and let's just keep it close here. And the one we're drawing in here is, if you remember, whether it's controlled or uncontrolled or a dozer line. And so we're just doing it generally here. So let's go to about here, and that'll be one line. And now let's bring up the attribute table, because then we can change the label according to our domain. So let's make that uncontrolled. And let's bring it down a little bit. And another thing that's useful to know, and I'll show you here, is we're going to create, and we're going to choose the line. And so as we're going along, and let's say the map the edge of the map isn't showing, and you want to bring the map down while you're actively editing, then you just hold down the C key, just the C key on your keyboard, and that overrides the tool you're in and allows you to actually move the map without messing up your edit tool that's active. So I just release the C key, and my edit tool for drawing the line becomes active. So let's go a little farther. I'm double clicking to end that. And the first one didn't stick, so the second one is controlled. And again, I'm holding down the C key to move it. And let's draw it again. Let's just quickly go through this. And what I'll do is we'll enter in our points and what we want on this map, and then in the last video, let's just go ahead here and finish it. And notice too that when I hover over, it'll tell me, in this case, fire line type. It's a vertex, and so that's a vertex is where I actually clicked the mouse key that establishes a point, and that I was changing directions. So this will tell you where it is, and because you're snapping, it'll snap to the fire line type vertex. And then I wanted to end it. Control Z and double click over that last point I want. And now let's do the little spot fire. Let's use the freehand tool for that. And I'm clicking on it to establish the line. And then just circle around. Also, I made a mistake. I put in a little extra line there. So I put in a whole bunch of extras. So I just wanted, okay, not to confuse you guys much, but I drew in a tiny little extra line here. And so we're going to delete that. And that's a good way of checking your drawings, because when you look at the attribute table, it'll show everything that was drawn separately. And I find, especially when I'm drawing polygons, and I'm not on a level surface or in the field or something like that, then I'll make a little bump with my hand, and that actually will draw an extra little polygon or even an extra little line in there. And later on, when you're editing and correcting things, there'll be a teensy little line on here that doesn't seem to be connected to anything, and so you slowly have to just highlight each one and zoom to it to find out where the extra little bit is. So anyway, that's just a little side note. Okay, so let's make that last one uncontrolled. And let's make the spot fire totally uncontrolled. Okay, so now we've drawn in our fire boundaries, and let's go ahead and center the map, and let's save the edits. Save all edits, yes. And let's clear the highlighted features, and everything's saved. Let's get out of edit mode. Okay, now let's do a few more points and we'll close out on this session. So we've entered in the fire origin point, we've entered in the line, sections of the line, and we've entered in the area roughly along the line. And some of this isn't especially well drawn, but again, I'm just getting you folks used to using the tools. So now we're going to be entering different attributes in the attribute table for the points. So go ahead and bring up the attribute table, and we now have two tabs here. Let's bring it down even a little bit more, get some more real estate there. And let's go back into editing mode. So edit on the ribbon here and activate the edit tool. And we're doing points, so let's choose the point tool. And so we're just going to let's do a few drop points here. So that's likely to be on a road. So here's a road over here. And then we we double click and let's make it a drop point. And let's put another one in. Let's put a helispot in up here. And once again, under name, we put a landing zone. Let's add another drop point up here. And the drop point for that is going to be drop point. And what haven't we used yet? Oh, then we're going to do some division breaks. So that'll be right along the fire line here. So we'll put one there. That'll be a division break. And we'll put one here, another division break. And let's put another division break up here. And again, I'm going to want you to see the symbology. What was that supposed to be? Oop. Single. Okay, that's another division break. So notice when I had forgotten which point that was meant to be, you just highlight it here, and it highlights the symbol. So that's in the same green as this. And last, let's add an incident command post. We'll put that down here at the moccasin plant there. So let's make that the ICP. Okay. Okay. Now, let's save all that. So we're still in edit mode. We go save. And you could have discarded all of the edits since you started. But now we go out of edit mode, and it's going to ask me if we want to save our edits, and yes I do. And then the edit icon goes out. Now, back when I was talking about the reminder to save your edits, this is what I mean is, and why I'm happier with the edit icon tool, because otherwise, whatever minutes you're setting it's popping up every 2 minutes as the default and asking if you want to save your edits. But like I said, I get tired of being bothered by that. So I'm holding down the C key, but you could also use the Explore tool and zooming out a little bit. And so that shows our points, lines, and polygons. And so I'm going to end the video here. In the next video, we'll go ahead and clean up the map some more. We'll add unique symbology to each of our field drop-downs from the domains, and we'll start labeling and generally cleaning up the map. And that'll be in the next video, and then, with luck, video 6, I'm hopeful we can start moving into printing the map and sharing it on ArcGIS Online. So thanks, and we will continue this whole mapping process in the next one. Thanks.